If a scientist says that the data from a particular experiment proves that a particular law is true, how should we regard this? Well, I've been emphasizing that science isn't really about proving something to be true. It's more about testing things, testing ideas to see which ones maybe work and which ones don't work. In that sense, falsification, the attempt to falsify, is really about removing the things that don't work and doing it in a very rigorous and checking each other, independent verification. All that was part of it, right? So if a scientist says that, right, we should call him out and say, "Hey, I was in Kramer's class, and he said that you cannot say that you prove something to be true in science. So, dude, you got to give me your credentials because you got to turn them in because you're obviously not a good scientist." No, you shouldn't do that. Okay, scientists will occasionally say something like this, but I think the way that we should interpret that is that what they're saying is that that experiment has really ruled out quite a few, maybe all conceivable possibilities. So sometimes scientists will say this. I usually try to be careful not to do this, but I've seen it happen. I've seen it in literature. I've seen people say this. I even have said it once in a while, but I usually go back and explain, well, here's why I think that's true. And really what it's saying is that this seems to be the only possibility that's left because everything else has been ruled out. But in a sense, I mean, I think one of the tricky things here is like prove and the word true. Like, are we saying true with a capital T or just with like, there's different definitions of truth is maybe one way of putting it. And that's something I've heard of in philosophy classes. They'll talk about there's different ways of establishing truth. So in that sense, one could argue that there is scientific truth established by this scientific method, but that's not absolute truth with a capital T that will remain infallible forever and is never to be questioned. We never have that kind of truth in science. So it's okay to say we have scientific truth. But again, prove a little bit dicey. So let's look at the answer. It says, it may have been better to say that the data validated the law or failed to overturn it. Oftentimes when a scientist says this kind of thing, or when they say it this way, it is a situation where the data failed to falsify the law, and that probably most scientists would agree that future measurements are unlikely to ever change that result.